Hello there, welcome back to Jennie Designs with Paper. I'm working with my jelly plate today, just having a little bit of fun. So get comfy and let's get crafty. So I have pulled out of my drawer a collection of acrylic paints. Some of them are distress paints, some of them are just folk art or whatever I found at Walmart, Hobby Lobby, whatever. And mostly I went for a color palette from a dark purple to a blue to an aqua to a green. And then I pull in a little bit of yellow later. I have a few sheets of regular old copy paper and a couple of stencils. And I just wanted to kind of play around with layering paint on my jelly plate with stencils without pulling prints in between. So yeah, that doesn't seem like it makes a lot of sense, but you'll see what I mean in a minute. So my first plan of action is to go ahead and put a layer of dark blue paint on this jelly plate, and I am burnishing around with my brayer and then cleaning it off on a piece of paper I've put here onto the right hand side. And I'm kind of trying to go for a kind of sort of ombre look, but I started with the dark, so that's probably not how it's going to work out. So I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of a dark aqua right there in the middle. I will try and lighten it up by adding a light aqua to the bottom, but then I decided to just blend that out and see what it turned into. I do like that it's not a solid color, that there are different shades and values of this blue to light aqua color all over the jelly plate. I'm going to go ahead and put this stencil down now. One thing with the jelly plate, the thicker your paint is, the longer you have to wait for it to dry. And you get the best prints when the paint is nearly dry. Not crusty dry, but not dripping sticky wet. And many times during this playing process, I put way too much paint on my brush. Or on my plate, rather. For example, right here, I just wanted to add a little bit of yellow paint to the centers of those flowers. And I put down a ton of paint. There was even blotting it off with my roll-off paper. It didn't really do much good. Now that I have those kind of brayered out a little bit, I'm going to add some pink and roll that around with my larger brayer. I'm not going for super heavy layer here because I'm going to pull the stencil up and kind of turn it a little bit and try and get a second layer, kind of a fuller flower. This is kind of a hydrangea or a dahlia style flower. I am not waiting until my paint is dry, so I'm trying to hurry up the process with my hand there, which, always works, right? Kind of like when we cry, we fan our face trying to get the tears to go back up our face, whatever that's all about. I am using my smaller brayer, and I'm trying to use a lot less paint. I just tend to be a little heavy-handed, and some of these paints are more fluid than others. And because I'm using a whole bunch of different brands, I'm, not accurately predicting how fast the paint is going to come out. But I'm just kind of trying to offset this a little bit so that I get a little bit of a fuller, thicker flower. I probably should have put the darker paint down before the lighter paint. But in my mind, I'm working back of the print forward. And so I got the two purples mixed up. I should have used the lighter pink after I used the darker purple. But it's all good. Or should have put the darker purple down before the lighter purple. I'm not sure why I said pink. Because words are hard. And again, I am just trying to dry that off a little bit. And I'm going to add some paint through the leaf stencil here. And I'm going for a bright Kelly green. It is absolutely, completely different from all of the other colors on the jelly plate right now. And that is exactly what I wanted. This is a bright, bright, bright green. I wanted these leaves to be completely out of that color family right there. I didn't want there to be a natural blend there. I wanted them to stand out. Just kind of what I was thinking in my mind. Again, a little bit heavy on the paint, but that's okay because as I twist the stencil around, I can easily just take the rest of the paint on that brayer and add it through my stencil again, and then maybe add a little bit more because, less is more and more is better. Alrighty, I need to clean off my stencil, so I'm just going to clean off my brayer first. Then I'm going to put the stencil sticky side down or green side down and kind of brayer the back of the stencil, pick up some of that excess paint. And then I'm going to add a layer of white acrylic paint. So the best prints actually pull off your Geli plate when you let the paint dry and then you add a layer of white acrylic paint or a light, like a ivory, something that's very light, and let it dry. Do a thin layer and let it dry, and then you get the best prints. This is also how I clean my plate. I keep putting white paint down till there's no more acrylic paint crunches left on my plate. And I'm just going to go ahead and take my brayer and give some nice firm pressure to this Geli plate. This is the Deco Art 8 by 10 inch Geli plate. I'm not sure if I mentioned that before. So it's nearly the size of a regular piece of computer printer paper. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull that plate, and you can see that when I pull that print, there's very little paint left on my Geli plate. And I like the distressed looking part of it. It's kind of sort of floral looking. It's not a very detail specific, and I'm not sure I love the super dark blue background. So then I decided, without cleaning, because that's how you get that luscious grungy texture on your gel prints, I decided to go ahead and just start with a layer of yellow. It's a bit brighter. It will be a very stark contrast to that print with a dark blue background. And I'm just brayering that on. You might notice as I'm brayering that I'm not just rolling back and forth. I'm pulling it down, picking it up, and going back up to the top so that the entire brayer rolls around and I get all of the paint off the entire cylinder of the brayer. I am going to go ahead and use the same flower stencil. I'm laying the lighter purple down and brayering that with my small brayer. Just trying to be a little bit more light-handed with the paint. Sometimes it works, sometimes it does not. In between each step, I do clean off my brayer. And when I am done completely and I've cleaned up everything, I will take the rollers out of my brayers and wipe them off really well with some soapy water or a baby wipe. And that is just to keep the brayer roller itself smooth so that the next time I go to use it, I don't have edges in my brayer. I mean, not that that wouldn't be cool, but if I'm looking for a smooth blend, I don't want crusty edges on my brayer, right? I'm going to go ahead and lay that stencil down on its sticky side and brayer it off and try and collect the rest of the paint on that roll-off page. Sometimes your roll-off pages make great papers for pulling prints. Every once in a while, I will take that roll-off page and lay it down at the end and just see what I come up with. And sometimes they make beautiful prints. It's just kind of, I don't think that you can have an exact or a perfect print when you're using your gel plate. You know, you have this idea you might want to try, and I've tried a couple of different things over, the couple of years I've been playing with my gel plate, and I know what I'm trying to obtain. And in theory, I know the layers in which I need to obtain that print, but it really never does come out how I'm imagining in my head. And that is just because it's not predictable in the way that some other art mediums are, which is kind of why I love it. If I'm really feeling stumped, this is my go-to. So now that I have my leaves down, I am going to add a layer of this really light blue, which could act as the white, right? You could use a really light blue and put that down in a really thin layer and pull your print that way. But again, I'm going to try and go with this ombre or gradient style background. So I've started with the really light kind of aqua blue. I've moved into a mid-tone. Now I'm pulling out this really dark kind of cobalt almost blue. And I am just going to keep adding and keep rolling them together. I'm going to try and only mix them where those lines meet so that I don't have harsh lines. But again, it's just a play. I was kind of stumped on another project I wanted to work on. I didn't really know which direction to go. And so I sat down and pulled out my gel plate and a bunch of acrylic inks and this stencil, excuse me, and just kind of went to town to see what I could get with. And I ended up using none of these prints in the project I was trying to work on, but it definitely got my creative juices flowing again. So I was able to go ahead and move on with that project. So here is that background. I like it more now than I did when I pulled the print. And then I'm going to go ahead and put a really thin layer of this white acrylic paint and clean up the rest of the crusties and the leftovers on my Geli plate there. And like I said, sometimes this last print is like the best, especially for an art journal page background or a mixed media art project background when you just need something that's not a blank page. So I'm going to pick up that roll-off page again and just see what I get. Pull up all of that paint and see what kind of background I come up with. And you can see that that stencil has really left an impression on the gel plate. So I'm going to take the really dark roll-off page and see what happens when I pick up the rest of that paint with this darker page. And it's kind of pretty. It's kind of like a ghost print, which is, you know, I guess kind of the name for these secondary prints. But so, yeah, so this is one print. And then that was my first roll-off. This is the second roll-off paper and the cleanup. It's not fantastic, but it'll make a good background. This is the second print, which originally I didn't love, but the more I look at it, the more I like it. And I think it will make a really nice art journal background page. Add a little bit of black text and something like that to it. And then I have my first print. And while it wasn't what I was kind of going for, it definitely worked out and it got my creative juices flowing. And that's all I was going for. Thank you so much for stopping by my channel today. I hope you enjoyed this little Geli plate play. I've added a couple of other videos here for you to watch and a subscribe button. If you have not already subscribed to my channel, I would love it if you did. And as always, have a really great day.